shows, updates, and interviews. The only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the team WSN.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of State of the Jungle with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host, as always. We've got Evan, we've got Logan, we've got Daniel back home on the ones and twos as the producer of the show, and we've got a jam-packed show for you. I want to ask you guys to do us a huge favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. With that being said, boys, week 1 is in the books. Bengals didn't look like the Bengals against the New England Patriots. The Bengals fell short against the New England Patriots. There are people that are panicking because the Bengals fell short against the New England Patriots. There are people that say Joe Burrow is no longer Joe Burrow. There are people that are saying the Bengals are frauds. And to that, what say you, Evan?
Oh, God, we got a lot to talk about, man. But the important thing, first of all, is that I think once everybody had time to kind of step back from the game, review the film, look at how things transpired, I think it's fair to say that everyone shared fault, right? This was not a game where the fault lies at the feet of just the coaching staff or Joe Burrow or the offensive line or it's everybody. Everybody was failing in what they needed to do on Sunday. But again, also there were a few positives that you can take away from what you saw. There is also the factor that, hey, this is a long season and this is week 1. And the season's only a little over 5% over, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of time to kind of course correct, kind of figure things out a little bit more. But ultimately, we'll dive into a little bit more detail on this. But I see like 2 kind of major like narratives coming out when we're talking about this game, right? And I think there's just failures to execute, failures to finish is something that constantly came up. But people are making a lot of, not even necessarily excuses. They're just giving a lot of reasons of like, hey, well, the starters just need to play more preseason. That's not going to do it, guys. Going out there and just kind of like lollygagging out there and going, hey, we've got the base defense and they're not mixing things up. They're not rolling coverages. They go out there for what, 7, 10, 15, 20 more snaps in the preseason and we're not going to have this rust. I mean, what about the Eagles? The Eagles starters didn't play a single fucking snap in the preseason. They looked fine. The Cowboys starters didn't play in the preseason outside of the rookies. They looked fucking great too. What about the Buccaneers? The Buccaneers did the exact same way where most of their starters played less than 10 snaps in the preseason. So like, it's more of just like a preparedness thing. It's more of a ramping things up and getting them more intense maybe in camp, but like subjecting your starters to more potential for injury for snaps that don't hold a lot of value is not going to be the answer. It's got to be better preparation. It's got to be better preparedness. And the other excuse that I hear that I'm sure a lot of people are saying, well, there were distractions. There's distractions all over. The Cowboys, again, we're dealing with a quarterback and a wide receiver, both dealing with contract options. The former, the quarterback, dealing with it up to hours before kickoff. So they looked fine. They weren't all rattled out there and distracted, and their preparation was terrible. The 49ers dealt with a bunch of stuff with Brock Purdy wants a new contract, and Brandon Ayuk wants a new contract, or he wants to be traded. And, hey, your star tackle is also just not showing up at camp and wants a new contract as well. And guess what? They still showed up and they still played hard and they still prepared and they still executed. That's, again, there's other issues that the Bengals are going to have to look inward to course correct here. But I don't think the answer is just, oh, well, they had contract discussions going on at the same time training camp was happening. So then Tanner Hudson fumbled at the red zone line because he was distracted by Jamar Chase's contract or didn't
really
prepare
thinking
well
about
enough. Or and Joe Burrow's a professional. I don't think Joe Burrow's in the meeting room watching film and game planning and going, man, I'd love to focus like 80% better than I can right now, but Jamar just has me so distracted. Like, these guys are professionals. Like, they're people. We all compartmentalize stuff and then work through what we have to work through. You worry about what you can control. And so again, this comes to preparation. This comes to just being solid in the fundamentals. To, again, maybe this means getting more ramped up in practices and stuff, but those are the overall things I wanted to touch on. We can touch on more specifics of the game and what actually happened and what it means for the offense and the defense. But Logan, I want to let you go ahead and get some words in here.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think we've all talked about the Patriots so much at this point, and and about the offseason and how we can do this and how we can do that better, what went wrong, what we can do different. But at the end of the day, like, we don't really know what the issue is necessarily. We don't necessarily know how they're practicing. We don't know if the players aren't responding. We don't know if the coaches are, taking it too easy in the offseason. We really don't know, truthfully, what that process looks like, especially compared to other teams. So something needs to change. Absolutely. Whatever the hell it is, whether they believe it's more snaps in preseason, whether it's this, whether it's that. Realistically, it's probably a little bit of everything. There probably needs to be almost a complete overhaul of how the offseason is handled. Or maybe it's just the training, how training camps handled. Whatever it is, they need to sit down and just really kind of just figure it all out, because this cannot keep happening. But when it comes to terms with just the overall gameplay, the thing that, I was kind of most disappointed to see was just the offense was just boring again. There wasn't anything really fun, creative, new, much different to it. I tweeted out some percentages, and the Bengals were the fourth lowest team on pre-snap motions on passing plays, under 30%. It's such an easy thing to do to help your quarterback, to help your offense, and just to see the Bengals continue not to do it, it's just so confusing to me. There's not necessarily a direct correlation between more motion, more success, but there's so many times where it does make things so much easier. Joe Burrow is such a smart guy. Imagine giving him an advantage. Imagine giving him a tell and what coverage they're going to be in. There's so many positives to do it, and the Bengals just continue to refuse not to do it. It doesn't seem like they're adjusting. It doesn't seem like they're adapting. Yes. It's just there's so many, like, it just doesn't make sense why they're not doing it. I think that's the most frustrating part to me. I kind of had some hope with, some new eyes in the building that maybe we would kind of see some differences. Maybe it's a week one thing. I don't know what it is. Maybe they thought it was the Patriots and we can get away without showing it all.
Right.
But regardless of what it is, the offense was too boring, too stagnant, just too bland. It was too easy to cover. And, I think that was the biggest disappointing thing.
I want to elaborate on that a little bit too, because you bring up a good point there, and it's something that stuck out to me too. So, like, before we get into like the really bad negatives, I do want to talk about the positives that I did mention, right? And that is, there were some decent play designs on play action shots. There was a couple deep shots that they had. There was one flat route to Jamar Chase that ended up being a good look with some clear out routes going at the same time. And then there was also the play action kind of screen look that they had there too. I thought that was at least
that screen was nice.
It was a creative way to get to the screen look and kind of dress things up a little bit. And that's what we've been asking for, right? They did move Chase into the slot. They did have a more successful and efficient run game. When they finally, the first initial couple drives, 3 or 4 drives, they had sacks and penalties take them out of range to where they could comfortably convert, had to punt, right? But on their touchdown drive, their first touchdown drive, they had 4 runs for 33 yards for Moss and an 8-yard rush for Chase Brown. That was all really good efficiency, good timing, good rhythm, good play calling. I want to give that credit, right? So at least take away the run game was efficient, which we needed it to be, right? But again, you brought it up. The offense was too static and too vanilla at times to where the spread is nice because it can open things up and kind of give you answers right away and tells based on what you're seeing, right? The disadvantage there is also you get so predictable if you keep the picture the same, like you said, pre-snap with no motion, no bunch sets, all this stuff, right? So when you spread it out and they're all playing zones and you've basically matched up one-on-one for them to where everybody can just go, I'm going to grab this guy. It keeps seeming like no one's open, right? Because you're just clouding everything over top. And then when the guys are open in the flats and underneath, you've got defenders from New England sitting there in their zones, watching that and coming up and rallying and tackling. So these 2 and 3 yard gains keep happening, right? you did see them do some things like bunch formations on the Tanner Hudson play where he got up to the goal line. That was out of a bunch formation. When Chase got the little curl off I think it was Yoshivas running the deep route, and then Chase ran that stop route and got the first down. That was out of a bunch formation. They took too long to get to those answers. And also, I don't think they did a great job of kind of pivoting to attacking short and attacking the middle of the field when they were doing these cover 2 looks. We talked in my keys to victory for the Know Thy Enemy last week, how Jelani Tavai and some of these other corners were good in coverage. And so you had to challenge the guys like Juwan Bentley that is these old school linebackers that aren't great in coverage. And they didn't do that enough, especially if they're going to keep going out there playing these cover 2s and asking these linebackers to cover so much real estate. So I just would have loved to have seen a little bit more creativity there. They just ultimately did not have these guys ready to play, man, on offense and with that, or on defense with all the tackling. And again, it comes back to finishing plays, whether it was getting pressures and not being able to bring down Jacoby Brissett on 3rd down, whether it was 13 missed tackles charted by PFF, whether it was catching the ball and finishing all the way to the ground when you did the catch, whether it was protecting the ball from fumbling at the end of the play while you're going down. It's all finishing. Finish the run. Don't give up. Don't do 95% of the work. Some of the runs on the missed tackles, like they scraped into the gap. They did the overflow. They did what they needed to, and they just pulled up. They weren't aggressive. They didn't make the tackles. They got the touches, but he ran through it. So that just really killed it, man. And let me go ahead and before I start rambling even more, let me hear your thoughts on the 4th and 5 and what you think about that decision to punt.
It's tricky, man, because
I don't think it is. I don't think it is tricky. Go ahead, Logan. I'm sorry. I can't.
Well, I see a lot of people, like, we're talking about the very last one at the end of the game, right?
Yes.
Right at the goal line, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right down there.
100%.
I know a lot of people like don't get it, but like I kind of get it just because, like, well, let me back up first. I understand why people are mad because everybody felt like the defense has been terrible. We were going to continue to miss tackles. I agree that's how it felt, but you still just can't just expect that to happen. You can't expect him to continue to suck and to continue to miss tackles, because at the end of the day, you punt the ball. Because if you don't punt the ball and you just go for it and you don't get it, then boom, all of a sudden, all they do is take 3 kneels and the game's over. Or they kick a field goal.
Counterpoint. You said you can't just expect the defense to continue to be bad and miss tackles, right?
Yeah.
Is it fair to expect the offense to continue in that same logic? Is it fair to expect the offense to just continue to struggle and not be good on the
no,
fourth down
and
play, right?
but that you're right.
And that's where I just kind of
and then the inverse is just that we played them. You knew they're going to run the ball. You know they're going to run the ball. You know they're going to run the ball. We were in the backfield 3 times on their 3 run plays, and we just continued to miss tackles. If you just make one of those tackles, who knows? Maybe you get the ball back again with a minute and 20 left, no timeouts, and then you can expect the offense to go. It's just such a risky play to where it's just like, if you don't get it, you automatically lose, to where if you punt it, you can still get a stop and you can still win. There's just more outcomes to success by punting, I think. I'm not saying that didn't feel like what was going to happen happened, because it most definitely did. Like, I agree with that completely, but it's just so hard not to punt it, knowing it's going to be runs. You know, you can stop it. We were in the backfield. We were right there about to stop it every time and just didn't. They were so close to doing it. They just, again, the trend continued and continued and continued and continued, which is inexcusable. Again, Cam Taylor-Britt was right there on the last play. Ramondre Stevenson juggling for 9 yards. Like that's the stuff that can't happen. So like, I get both sides of it, but it's just, I don't like not getting it. They can just immediately kick a field goal to a 2-possession game. You lost.
I know we've kind of stolen the show here, Malik. So let me just give my thoughts on this, and I want to hear what you have to kind of chime in on this as well.
Sure.
So I'm going to start with the idea of, oh, well, you expect the offense to get 5 yards the way they looked. Fucking yeah, guys. You've got Joe Burrow, who is a top 5 quarterback in the league, top 7, whatever you want to call him, based on where he's at right now. I know he starts the season kind of slow for a litany of reasons, right? We're still trying to figure out why the Bengals start slow. You don't pay your quarterback hundreds of millions of dollars, draft a receiver in the first 5 picks, and get ready to pay him hundreds of millions of dollars, and bring in an offensive head coach and build this offensive line and build out this receiving core the way that you do, to be scared in this moment when you have the game in your hands. That is the advantage of offense, right? Is because defense, you react to what the offense is doing, right? You have to stop them 3 times. Any of those 3 plays on defense go poorly, you're fucked. Not to mention, what if the punt return goes poorly? You shank the punt, the return comes back to you. Suddenly they're in field goal range and they don't even need to worry about it, right? So that's the other aspect of it. Punts can go wrong. We've seen punts go horribly wrong, right? The other side of it is, again, not all 4th downs are created equal, right? This is not every 4th and 5, you should just go for it, right? The difference is that you can add up to 5 win probability based on various 4th down models, give or take a few percentage points. That is huge compared to a lot of these other kind of toss-ups where it's like, hey, maybe 0.1, 0.2, not a big deal. That is such a strong go for it that you literally, again, you have the game in your hands. You convert that 1st down, you have the 2-minute warning and 3 timeouts to get down the field, which what else does that do for you? If you get rid of those timeouts, let's say you punt it, you stop them 3 times, 2-minute warning's gone, you have what, 1 timeout left maybe, right? And a minute 45, minute 50.
Yeah.
Now you have to move the ball all the way down the field with the offense looking the way it did. Again, you guys were scared about what it was for picking up 5 yards. You think you're going to go the length of the field in a minute and 40 with 1 timeout and where you have to constantly hit the boundaries. So they're playing that. If you convert that 4th and 5, you have the 2-minute warning, you have the other 3 timeouts. Well, guess what? Now the entire middle of the field and in between the hashes is available for you to attack. And the defense is not at such a tremendous advantage knowing you have to try and handle hitting those outbreaking routes where they can play up on that stuff, where they can dare you to throw it over the middle and try to create opportunities for interception, sacks, everything else. And then you have to run the hurry up on a team that was not prepared, is not seemingly doing well. You want to put more stress on the offense? I say, fuck that. The strength of your team is offense, win and live and die by it. This is one possession right here. Just go out there and get the 5 yards. You're an offensive head coach with a top 5 quarterback and a top 5 wide receiver. You got to be able to get 5 fucking yards when it counts. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to just, there's frustration and blame to go around on everyone else, but you did not build this team to shrink away from that moment. That is your moment. That is what you are built for. That's what's going to win this team games. So when you're in these playoff games, when you're in these Super Bowl scenarios, that's the stuff that matters, that you look back and say, we have experience in these clutch moments, in these high leverage moments where we affirm our confidence of, hey, we didn't do shit right, but damn, we just converted that 4th and 5. Let's fucking go. We got time to get this back. Now you move down the field. Now you walk out of there and you say, hey, we put it together. We pulled it together. We did that. And now you've got positive momentum going in, man. It feels so defeatist. If you remember the Eagles game when they both punted and punted and punted, and it seemed like neither team wanted to win. That's what it felt like, where you were just saying, hey, Patriots, please do something wrong so that we can somehow pull this out. Take advantage, take ownership, use the strength of your team, and go win the game. Go at least try. Try and do that and be aggressive.
You know, I'm happy that y'all went on a tangent. That was 17 minutes nonstop of Evan and Logan going.
Had a lot to unleash on the first game
You
of the
know what?
season.
I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that because usually I'm the guy with the hot mic. I'm the guy that's usually sitting up here. I'm usually the guy that's up here yelling and hollering and saying this and saying that, and I get the angry DMs of "you don't care." So I appreciate that, but I think this speaks to a larger issue, guys. You know, I think while we're discussing, you know, the thought process with Zach Taylor, you know, punting the ball in that situation, I'm right there with you, Evan. No way should he have punted the ball. I think you should have went for it because what you basically did is you gave up the game at that point. But I think this speaks to a bigger issue. And I'll tell you what issue this speaks to. This has been going on throughout Zach Taylor's entire tenure here in Cincinnati, and that's the elephant in the room nobody wants to discuss. The defense has always bailed him out of these situations. So, lo and behold, he thought again in his mind, not realizing, you know, how the defense was playing the entire game, but more so what history has been, right? And history has been in those spots, our defense always comes up with a big spot and gives us the ball back. Now, the interesting thing happened when he punted the ball. The defense did what the defense had been doing all game. And now the defense is in a spot, and hear me out. I said this a couple of weeks. I said, I believe the Bengals defense is going to look a lot better a couple of weeks into the season versus how they're going to look to start the season. And I firmly believe that. But the defense couldn't get a stop. Logan brought up a good point. Cam Taylor-Britt was in the area, in the vicinity. But for some reason, instead of going for the tackle, he went with the bright idea that every coach hates in critical moments. Instead of wrapping up and tackling, let's try and punch the ball out. Logan, I know as a coach, when you saw that, you were literally probably losing your hair or losing your shit at that point, right? Because that's the one thing they teach: wrap up, tackle, get the guy down. If the ball comes out, the ball comes out. But don't don't be in a great position to stop the guy, but go for the punch out and then give the guy extra yardage.
If anything, you hold him up and somebody else comes and punch it out, not just go for it.
Right. So there was this bad football being played all around, but that speaks to an issue. Exactly what I was saying before. Zach Taylor is used to this Bengals defense pulling him out of hot water. Make no mistake about it. As porous as the defense played on Sunday, the Bengals still had an opportunity to come back and win. That's saying something. As porous as the defense played on Sunday, the Bengals still had an opportunity to win. The defense did get enough stops. The offense just couldn't capitalize. And here's my thing. We talk often about how the offense is the strength of the Bengals. I'm still waiting to see that consistently. That's the thing. I'm waiting to see it consistently. I see a lot of names. I see a lot of hype, but I don't see I don't see it always coming to fruition. And I think that's the issue that plagues me a little bit. That's the issue that I have, because it's like, this team is talented. This team could put it all together. We talk a lot about the one word I hate most. And Daniel, what is that word? Intangibles. But there's another word, potential. I hate that word.
I love Walle's quote, man. You keep talking about potential. Your whole career is an intro.
Listen, man, at the end of the day, we need to see it happen. We need to see it happen. We have yet to see what this offense looks like in totality. We haven't seen it yet. And, I think for me, in watching that game, that was Zach Taylor waving the white flag. Even if he didn't mean to do it subconsciously, he was waving the white flag when he punted the ball. Because you're asking your defense to do something that they haven't been able to do all game. Make no mistake about it. And one of my producers handed me a note for the morning show. And it was when we were talking about the topics we were going to talk about, it was, are the Patriots back? And I said, what? What are we talking? Like, make no mistake about it. All they did was bully ball the Bengals. They ran the ball down the Bengals. So there was nothing complicated.
Occasionally on third down.
There was nothing complicated about what the New England Patriots did. So therefore, it brings me to my next point. Evan and Logan kind of touched on it. I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but I got to be honest with you. I think I think we could keep talking about how, Bengals always start slow. But ask yourself this. When you talk about the Bengals always starting slow, at some point, when is it going to kick the Bengals in their fucking teeth? At what point is that loss going to be so gigantic to the point where, they're not going to be able to come back? It's because of these losses as to why down the stretch they're in dogfights. Because you lose the games you have no business losing. Say what I want about the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Say what I want about them. Say how I feel about them. It doesn't matter how shitty they play. I don't know if they would lose to an inferior team like the Patriots like this. Let alone at home. Let alone at home at the home opener. And I know I feel for Bengals fans, and I talked about this already. Bengals came out and they said, hey, Bengals fans, do us a favor. Spend your hard-earned money. Spend your hard-earned money. Buy orange stuff. Stripe out Paycor Stadium in fucking orange. As we embrace the whole orange look, orange pants, orange jersey, and watch us get the shit kicked out of us by the New England Patriots by a simple-ass game plan of halfback dive.
Yep.
Anybody else see what the problem with that? Right? So, again, there's so much I could talk about, but I feel for Bengals fans. You guys deserve a better product on the field. We deserve a better product on the field. This can't be the same old tired narrative that the Bengals start slow. Because what the Bengals fans were sold on the last couple of years were, Joe Burrow was hurt. He's dealing with the calf strain. He's coming back off of an ACL, or he's appendix. That's what the Bengals fans are sold year after year. But this year, we expect to start fast. Joe Burrow looks the best Joe Burrow has looked. He is ready. He is hyped. He is pumped. This team is together. This team is locked in. And all you did was put up 10 points on quite possibly one of the worst talented football teams. You constantly get out coached by a coach now that's making his NFL debut. It's year 6. It's year 6. At some point, you got to get your shit together. Somebody's got to say it. You got to just do your job. Talk all about the Bengal way and this, that, and the third and blah, blah, blah. You ask these fan base to get pumped, get hyped, wear orange, looking like a goddamn pumpkin. And that's the performance you put out on the football field against the New England Patriots. You should be a goddamn ashamed of yourself. That's how I feel. Again, I'm sure I'll get a text. Why'd you go in on us like this? Why'd you say what you said about it? I don't care. It was a terrible performance. Had no business losing to the Patriots. And this is why I get on this show. I talk my shit. I'm pumped up. I'm passionate. And I say what I say. I might offend people, but guess what? Somebody's got to do it. It was a shit show performance. Now, the easy win that you were hoping to have, guess what? Didn't happen. Now you got the Kansas City Chiefs. Now you got to work.
Yeah, and I think it bears repeating, man, that it wasn't just the coaches, man. Joe Burrow was taking sacks that he maybe probably should not have. There where he shares some blame on those. He was not pulling the trigger on some of the deep shots of the tight window throws. Remember, the intermediate part of the field and the tight windows were where Joe Burrow was elite in his early part of his career in the league. And so we just haven't seen that. Maybe that's a confidence thing. Maybe that's a comfort and feel thing that he'll kind of work through a little bit over the next couple of weeks. And hopefully it is, because he did look slow and he looked rusty. But again, it does come back to the offensive line was largely pretty good, except Kappa and Brown had their moments where they weren't doing so well. But the problem was there was always something at the worst opportune time, right? The offensive line had a holding call that brought back a good gain, right? And then put you in 3rd and long. You have Joe Burrow sacks that put you in 3rd and long, and then you got a punt. You have multiple fumbles when you should have been in scoring position, multiple scoring opportunities like Gesicki drops, Zach Moss drops, wide receivers not named Jamar Chase aren't getting enough separation, getting open. The concepts that are there, when they are there, Joe Burrow's not pulling the trigger. It's just everything. Anyone who plays golf knows how hard it is to get a good drive, to get a good hit off the fairway, to get on the green with a good chip and then hit a good putt, right? It's all 4 of those aspects going together. And they had 2 out of 4 or 3 out of 4 every single play, but there was always something, whether it was catching the ball, getting to the end zone, but fumbling at the 1-yard line, not getting that putt, not getting that across, whether it was the deep shots after having the perfect play call and the perfect coverage where they finally get them in cover 1, cover 3, not being able to hit it and pull the trigger, not being able to pull the trigger on the seam ball. Like there was defenders, every single defender missing tackles, guys who couldn't generate pressure outside of Trey Hendrickson, couldn't hold up against the run when that's what you're supposed to do. Sam Hubbard, like you were an elite run defender and then he didn't do a damn thing.
Nothing.
It's bad when Zach Carter was looking like one of your best run defenders.
Very
now
good.
That is part of the Patriots offensive line, but still, everybody shared blame. That's just what I'm trying to get at is everyone had fault and everyone messed up somehow, but hopefully that means everyone is taking their preparation for next week and all the lessons you can learn from that embarrassment and take that and use that as fuel to kind of help project yourself forward and perform at a much, much better level, because that was not the level of expectation that anybody, including the players and coaches themselves, have for the Bengals.
Evan, real quick, something I just want to mention, something we touched on in the post-game show, and it's fascinating to see. Go look at every other team. Every team has their identity, and especially offensive identity. You can go look at, went back and rewatch the Chargers, want to see how Greg Roman and how they looked. Immediately, you can tell it is run first, and you know what they're doing. They're interchanging running backs. You go look at the Dolphins. You go look at the Rams versus Lions game. Both teams have their identity. You look at so many different teams, the Texans, even look at the Colts, what they're doing with Anthony Richardson. And I think it's just fascinating when you take yourself out of the shoes of being a Bengals fan and say, holy crap, let's see what my team looks like versus these other teams. And it's just interesting to see how the Bengals don't have their identity.
Let me touch on that and push back on that a little bit, because I think they do have an identity where we're going to be an 11 personnel 85-90% of the time, and we're going to spread things out, and we're not going to do a lot of the play action. They did have like a couple play action shots, a couple out of the gun, I think 3 or 4 out of like under center or pistol. But also, to play devil's advocate, they got the ball in weird spots, right? To where they would do on each of their first couple drives, they would do a run, but then they would have a holding call or a sack that would put them in 3rd and long, and then you got to pass, right? Or the 2nd down incomplete, you're in 3rd and long. So you put yourself in passing situations. Then you get the ball, you're working it down the field, you're running the ball, you're having success. We talked about their touchdown drive. You ran for 50 yards for 4.5 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry going down, right? So I think they wanted to run the ball a little bit more. They probably wanted to do a little bit more of the play action under center stuff, but from game script to time left in the game, being in 2 and 4 minute drills, there were maybe situations that lent themselves more to passing the ball. Now, I do think I agree that sometimes they can seem like they're still trying to figure out the balance, right? Of where they want to bring in these pistol, these under center kind of like, how much are we going to do when we are primarily a shotgun pass first offense? That's still something they're going to work out in terms of balance. But I do think that if you just ask me, what's their identity? I'm saying they are a spread gun gap scheme kind of team with some other elements kind of mixed in general.
The thing about that though is too, like, I agree that's technically their identity, but I also feel like that's just
it's a different question if you think it's a good one.
It's the most one of the most generic, just bland things there is. Like that's
you have to have a lot of window dressing and motion.
Yeah, and that's what we don't have. So it's like this is what they want to do, but they're not using that in the way that you would assume a team that is doing that would use it. That's the issue. They have, they have 11 personnel. They want to do all this stuff. They want to pass the ball, but then they go out there and you're running basic combinations. You're doing this. You're doing things that just they're very
slant,
basic.
Flat.
It's a very basic identity. Which again, I think the question you said is we have an identity. It's just that is it good? Are they using it right?
It also works when your quarterback is performing at a superstar level. And I think that's the
rely on him to be a superstar
every single week, and that's always the argument, right? But hopefully, Eric All being healthy, getting incorporated into the offense. When they did 12 personnel, it looked good. It was good, and that's going to help too, because right now in the play action shots, I think they went under center like I don't remember if it was 6 or 7 times, something along those lines, and then they did play action passes like 4 out of 5 of those times between under center and pistol, right?
Ran the ball a lot early.
Generally speaking, in analytics, they say you don't have to run the ball effectively or, 5 times before you achieve like optimal play action results, right? It's the threat of the run gets linebackers out of position because you're taught to do the lead step, to read out what you're doing, right? And that just draws you a little bit out of position to then attack leverage, right? However, when you're the Bengals and you throw the ball 65 to 70% of the time, and you don't go under center and do this stuff all the time, people are going to be like, well, when you throw the ball 70, 80, 90% of the time out of this, then we're just not going to respect the other thing until you do it 4, 5, 6 times. Yep. Now, hopefully once they get that on film, that becomes less of an issue. The play action's a little more effective, but they almost have reverse mixing syndrome of what they had 3 or 4 years ago when they would go under center and they would run the ball 90% of the time. Well, now if you go under center and you pass the ball 90% of the time, you have the same problem, but the opposite, right? And so I think a lot of this over the next couple of weeks to what Daniel's point was that they're going to have to find the marriage of how much are we going to use 12 personnel now that we have the tight ends where we feel like we can do it, right? Where we feel comfortable doing that stuff. Maybe they can kind of blend and kind of figure out the right combination and just kind of what the right mixture is of these different personnels, different looks, different kind of styles of offense that they want to do as Joe Burrow gets more comfortable, as they start to figure out what they have.
Yeah, you guys are cooking. You guys are making my job a whole lot easy today. Here's what I'll say to all that. It was an embarrassing performance. There's no other way to slice it up. It was an embarrassing performance, but you've got to take it on the chin. You got to keep pushing forward. I want to talk about a positive in that game. The Bengals may have found their punter in Ryan Rico. And no, we laugh, right? And I laugh too.
Just
but
small chuckle.
But hear me out. Chuckle. But hear me out. The last few times when they faced the Kansas City Chiefs, the difference of field position has been huge. And the ability to have somebody that can change the field position is even going to be a bigger thing for this defense, because this defense is going to have its work cut out for them against Kansas City Chiefs. If you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Drop your questions down in the comment section too, because Daniel will be getting to them later and we'll be answering those questions. But I did before we talk about the Chiefs Bengals preview, because our friend who's a diehard Chiefs fans in the comment section saying that the Bengals are outmatched on both sides of the football. Let me just say that I couldn't disagree more. I don't believe that still. The Chiefs have a lot of holes on their team too that I saw the Ravens take advantage of. We'll get to those though. That being said, the Bengals, if there was any other team that I would have wanted them, I don't think there's another team that I would have wanted them to face coming off of an embarrassing loss like this outside of the Chiefs, because you talk about a team that they have no choice but to get ready for, a team that they're always ready for, a team that they always play tough, a team that they've had success against.
Yeah.
It's been the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think that there could have been a better team that I don't think there could have been a better team for the Bengals to get ready for and get up for. So we're gonna touch on that a little bit more. And Sean, I'll get to all your posts, I will say, and all your comments in the comment section. Trust me, brother, I've got a special segment for you. But I want to touch on Joe Burrow because we touched on him briefly. There are people out there that are saying Joe Burrow was not the same. Joe Burrow is no longer who he used to be. I was overwhelmed with almost all the comments we were getting on the YouTube channel of how Joe Burrow was washed. We've had some very interesting takes this week, such as Joe Burrow didn't deserve the contract that he got paid. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, so on and so forth, are all better than him. Those are some of the comments that we were hearing this week. I view it a little bit different, guys, personally. I think that when you come off of a traumatic injury such as an ACL, such as wrist ligament tears, things, you think your game might look a little different, especially when you are coming off of an injury where you're literally, it's literally in your throwing hand, right? You're probably not going to be the most comfortable knocking off the rust, which is why I'm such a proponent of wanting to see, why I wanted to personally see more from them in the preseason, just to get them in that live in-game action, just to kind of knock off some of the rust, even if they would have played a quarter or a half. But I get it. You wanted to protect them. You wanted to make sure that there was no lingering injuries for the season, so on and so forth. I hate the slow starts. I hate the slow starts because the narratives start. The narratives start that they're no longer who we thought that they were. The thing about being on top, the thing about being such a tough team and a playoff perennial team, I think that a lot of fans, pundits, outlets are waiting for the fall off quite often. They're waiting for you to fall off. They're waiting to see that chink in your armor. They're waiting to see that you're no longer who you are. The thing about the Bengals is this has been their MO. And it's not, I don't say that as a good thing. This isn't a good MO to have, losing earlier in the season and then bouncing back. You don't want to see them, losing the easier games that they should be winning. The one positive that it has helped, right? The one positive that it has helped is when they do start to round into form, it's right before the playoffs, right? And then obviously you want to be your hottest. You want to be the best that you could possibly be going into the playoffs. But nonetheless, you shouldn't be losing to one of the worst or projected worst teams in the National Football League. You shouldn't be. Not for a team that they talk about with championship aspirations. You had no business losing to the New England Patriots. That's why I mean it when I say this truly. It was an embarrassing loss. But I want to talk to y'all about Joe Burrow. What are your thoughts on Joe Burrow's performance? Do you still think that that guy that the Bengals signed is still there? Or do you think that there's a little bit of mental blockage that he needs to get over? Logan, I want to start with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, in general, I think there's always going to be, small mental hurdle to climb when you're coming off an injury and when you have all the pressure on you that Joe's always had. We kind of alluded to it a little bit when Daniel was talking. They expect him to be perfect at all moments of every single snap that he plays. So that amplifies everything as well. I'm not worried about him just sucking anymore. That's just not a thing. He's always started a little slow, coming off a big injury. It's going to take a little bit of time, and maybe it's going to take a little bit more time than we all had thought. Maybe we thought he was going to come in firing on all cylinders finally. But at the end of the day, we always talk about it. A 1-game sample size doesn't really mean shit. And that's just the truth of it. If we're a month from now and Joe's still looking like this, yes, we can start kind of like maybe panicking a little bit more. Like, okay, what's going on? Was he still hurt? This or that. But after 1 week, there's just nothing to really freak out about yet. I'm not saying he didn't play bad. I'm not saying, there wasn't some things to be concerned about. But at the end of the day, it was 1 game. How many times have we had a bad game to start the year, and then 3 weeks later, we're talking about how we're the best team in the NFL again? Like, yes.
That'll happen after Sunday.
That's
Trust me.
It was a
That'll happen
terrible
after
game.
Sunday.
There were so many terrible aspects of that game.
Yeah.
But again, it was a game. I'm there. I don't like a lot of things I saw, but again, it was 1 game. I'm not going to freak about it yet. If we're still having these same issues or different issues or just bad, horrible things in general, a month from now, a month and a half from now, then I'll be way more concerned. But it's 1 game. I'm trying not to freak out too much yet. Again, if you want to, I get it, but still, 1 game sample size doesn't mean anything.
I'm low-key laughing before you go, Evan, because when we went to Daniel's shot, and he has obviously the close-up now. He looks like the guy that says, "This is our Colts. This is our team. We believe." Looks, I was waiting for him to start singing the Bengals. Sorry, go ahead, Evan.
You're good. First and foremost, we have 169 people watching right now. Thank you for
70.
joining us on this Wednesday night. We only have 34 likes. If you guys could please give us a like and subscribe, that helps us continue to bring great content to you, and we would very much appreciate you. When it comes to Joe Burrow, I don't think the wrist is a problem. He says he's feeling fine. He's stretching his arm around there, and he said himself, it takes time for me to just kind of feel normal, and I'm just doing that and just kind of feeling it out. The same way it takes you a while to feel 100% confident in planting and cutting on your knee after an ACL or an MCL injury, right? The other part is I didn't see anything in that game that made me go, oh, his wrist is what's bothering him, right? You didn't see balls just completely sail and waffle and duck like Peyton Manning did toward the end of his career, if you remember that. I didn't see a whole bunch of balls fluttering and terrible accuracy. I saw hesitancy. I saw lack of poise in the pocket. I saw kind of him bringing his eyes down and worrying about the pass rush, not trusting his offensive line and not trusting himself to rip it into tight windows. So again, that's all confidence things. That's all composure things. And I know Joe Burrow has the mentality that is needed to play quarterback at a high level, to have that competitor mentality. I'm not worried about him shaking that rust off, learning to trust himself, trust his offensive line again. That's just going to take time. And fortunately, that is something you can correct versus obviously, again, if we saw something where it's like, hey, the ball is just not coming out of his hand the same. The ball is inaccurate. The ball is skipping. It's fluttering. It's going over people's heads. That wasn't the case. He was still showing accuracy when he was able to throw the ball. I know there were some issues with drops and everything else, but overall, he did still show signs of the Joe Burrow that we know and love. We just didn't see him push it deep. I think the offense could have done a little bit more to help him out with that. There were some opportunities, I understand, but also the Patriots were playing a lot of cover 2 and trying to force the underneath stuff. So he wasn't really trying to force the issue, and he wasn't feeling his confident self to rip it in between defenders like he normally was. And I think all of that, with also kind of feeling a little bit more of the ghosts of the pressure of the pass rush, led to him having such a low average depth of target day, constantly checking down at the sticks or below. But again, I think the offense could have done more to help him out. But again, this is not wrist-related stuff. This is not bad hand, bad throwing, bad mechanics.
When you say offense could have done more to help him out, who are you referring to exactly?
So obviously there are plays like people have pointed out, like Sands, like Joe Goodberry have pointed out at the end of the game on, I believe it was the 3rd down, where they had the out and ups and they had single coverage and he just didn't rip it because he already had his eyes down looking at a defender who was unblocked and coming around the edge. When I say the offense could have done more to help him out in that sense, when they saw they were doing all of these cover 2 looks, I was hoping they would do more to put defenders in conflict, right? So what I mean by that is if you have 2 safeties deep and you have everybody kind of lining up there near the first down line with the boundary guys looking deep into the flats for the short stuff, right? You want to try and isolate those linebackers and get them with, let's say, have a drag route underneath the linebackers with a dig route in between or in behind them, or an in route, right? To where you put these linebackers in conflict, to where now Jawan Bentley goes, wait, Mike Gesicki's running behind me, but now here comes Andre Yoshivas in front of me. I got to pass this off. And if he sucks up to get the drag route, then Burrow layers it over his head into the intermediate area. And then if he goes and falls back, then you have the easy check down to Yoshivas, who has room in front of him to run because Bentley is sagging back to try and get the guy behind him. You've got to do more to put defenders in conflict, which is why I wanted more of the bunch concepts, which is why when they did do the bunch concepts, like with Jamar Chase's first down, like with the Tanner Hudson almost touchdown, they were able to put more defenders in conflict where they have to make a decision. And when you make defenders have to make decisions, have to communicate, you increase the number of chances. Every single one of those is like a coin flip. And if the coin flip doesn't go right for the defense in that instance, they lose. That's the advantage to offense. So I wanted to see more of putting defenders in conflict, whereas we talked about earlier, when you spread everybody out so much and have them all running isolated concepts to where they're doing these slants, these just little curl, sit, hook routes with curl flat combos.
Mm-hmm.
You're not spreading these guys out. You're not making them guard multiple defenders. You're saying, here's one guy in your area, go get him, lock him up. As opposed to saying, wait, I've got two, who's going to get it? And while you're thinking about that, while the other guy's thinking about that, while you're communicating, that's when mistakes are made. That's how guys like Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and Andy Reid get guys running wide open. And you go, how the hell are they so open? Because they put defenders in conflict. They make them make a choice, and eventually they're going to be wrong. And that's when you get those plays.
You cooked. Logan, anything you want to add on to that?
No, I'm right there with him. At the end of the day, the Bengals didn't do a good job of, they made their routes very easy to cover. That's everything Evan just said. There were some times where things worked, or it was just, there were just good throws, whatever. But at the end of the day, it was just too plain, too static. It was just easy to cover. That doesn't mean they weren't calling good plays necessarily, but the Patriots weren't threatened by anything they did. They didn't feel the need to change or try anything different because everything they kept rolling out there was just working, whether it was working as well as they wanted or not as well as they wanted. They weren't scared, and the Bengals never forced them into changing into anything, which is, brings up the whole point I rambled on about earlier. Is just them not adjusting and them not adapting in game over the season, whatever it is. The Bengals stayed pat. They rolled out their game plan. They stuck to it tooth and nail, and that's what it was. And it didn't end up working out. And at the end of the day, we're gonna have to change somewhere, sometime. And they just didn't do it, man.
You know what's funny with me? We talked especially when Evan did his Know Thy Enemy segment. But we were talking about areas in which the Patriots could take advantage of the Bengals. We talked about the run game, right? But we also talked on the Bengals side of things about where they'll be able to exploit mismatches would be in the passing game. And it's funny, the one thing that we said about the New England Patriots, we said that their run defense was very good last year, underrated almost in a lot of aspects. When the Bengals actually went towards their run game, and it could have been because they felt like the game was a little bit more in hand, and they were more so worried about the play action and what the Bengals would try to do to marry that off of the running game. But the Bengals were able to find some holes in the run game. They were able to find some holes on Alex Kappa's side of things and Trent Brown's side of things. And it was like, okay, well, why weren't we going to this? And that was on their scoring drive. They actually had went to it a little bit earlier before, and then they fell short. No, I'm sorry, they didn't fall short. It was the fumbling drive in which Tanner Hudson fumbled when he was going into the end zone. They went away from it a little bit. But it's like, sometimes when you go up against your biggest fears, sometimes it could work out for you, right? So for me, I think that I feel like the run game was something that they could have probably went to a little bit more. I would have liked to see a little bit more usage of Chase Brown in the game. I'm not sure why he wasn't in there as often as he was to start the game. I can imagine maybe they wanted to get Zach Moss acclimated and more comfortable. I don't understand the lack of usage of Mike Gesicki. I expect to see him in there a lot more. We saw what he could potentially do when he was in there. Listen, I think they left a lot to be desired. I thought there were some personnel questions that I had as well. But I think when it came down to Burrow, I think a lot of people were just saying the offensive line was porous, and that's not what I saw personally. I saw that the Patriots were sending extra blitzers, and there seemed to be a little bit of miscommunication or no one picking it up always. And when they were sending that extra blitzer, it was allowing for guys that were having a day like Keon White, who the Patriots were very, very, excited about. It allowed him to kind of get home a little bit more easy and create a life a little bit more, make life a little more difficult for Joe Burrow out there. But I don't think that the offensive line was as terrible as people. I don't think it was as terrible as people are making it out to be. I just think that people just saw rushers getting close to Joe Burrow or speeding up Joe Burrow's clock in his head. And I think people automatically thought that they were all edge rushers or interior, but not realizing the Patriots were sending blitzes at Joe Burrow quite often, especially on obvious passing downs. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about a little more because I think the offensive line is
They're
receiving
also
a little
playing
bit.
creatively with their fronts too.
Very
They were
much
doing
so.
different twists and
You saw,
stunts.
I
And
don't know if you saw,
and they were trying to
guys were dropping back in coverage too.
Yeah. Well, that's that first, the 4th and 2, where everybody was like, even myself included, was like, why did they throw into a place they didn't have the numbers? And it was because originally they had one-on-one for everybody, but then when they hiked the ball, the defensive end dropped into coverage into that shallow flat to where it was just the perfect play call at that perfect time to exactly what you're talking about, to where sometimes you're just in your bag on a play calling scale where you just get lucky, where you call the perfect thing.
And that's why when people, it's funny, there was talks right now with us that we're having of, there are a couple companies that want to work with us in the off season. Well, not in the off season, during the season, and want us to do like live watch parties, stuff like that. I'm like, listen, we'll be boring watching the game live for you. I'm just being honest, because me, Evan, and Logan, we all watched it, and Daniel, we all watched the game from a coach's perspective, and we kind of we're looking for what could go wrong versus like just I guess being in the moment of the game quite often. And I saw some issues in terms of the personnel and some questionable decision making in that game. But I think with the offensive line, I feel like it's just almost become the easiest thing to do at this point, to just say the offensive line was porous. And I'm here to tell y'all right now that that's not what was actually taking place. The Patriots were actually having a hard time getting home when they didn't send an extra rusher. Joe Burrow had time, and that's why we were like, okay, why isn't he throwing deep? And then when you look at the route concept, sometimes it wasn't guys weren't always getting open either. And there was some times where Joe Burrow was a little hesitant and stuff like that. There was a lot of stuff that played into that game. But the offensive line, to me, I'm not going to say that they were great, but they definitely were a lot better. The improvement was very noticeable.
Trent Brown was the only lineman to grade below average in pass blocking. Orlando Brown, Ted Karras, Cordell Volson, all 75 or higher.
What about Kappa? What was Kappa?
Kappa was at 66.8, which is slightly above average. Kappa had one charted pressure, which resulted in a sack. That was his fault. Trent Brown had 4 pressures and one that resulted in a sack. 16 pass block attempts for Trent Brown.
Right.
4 pressures.
Wow.
That's way too fucking high.
Right.
Way too fucking high. And that was something that we were kind of worried about, where, if Jamar Chase takes camp off, I know Jamar Chase can go out there and run routes. I know Jamar Chase is a spectacular athlete. When you have Trent Brown, who's already had issues with effort and conditioning and everything else, and then he shows up late in camp.
Yeah.
Again, if it was the Patriots or a team he'd been with for a while, he knows the playbook, he knows the guys playing next to him, already has that chemistry and continuity. Okay, sure. Show up a little bit later. Do your own personal work with your training coach, right? But new team, new scenario, new teammates, new playbook. And he shows up overweight, out of shape, looking absolutely like he's moving in quicksand out there compared to everybody else. And half the time when he was pass blocking, even on some of the reps he quote unquote won, he was he wasn't balanced. He wasn't square. He was reaching a lot. He was just trying to be in the way and get his hands on people and ride them.
But I'll say this. I also believe that could be a little bit of rust too. Right.
Of course. It's like he hasn't played football like an actual competitive environment for like 4 or 5 weeks. And it's like, that's the issue with him, right? Is that, again, I know Jamar Chase is training. I know Jamar can come out there and run. It's fine. Trent Brown, I'm worried about you, man. And then you show up overweight, you show up out of shape, and you're looking as slow and terrible as you are, man. Like, yeah, I imagine that can get better. But also on top of that is when you're showing up overweight and out of shape, you put yourself at greater risk of injury for a guy who's already had injury issues. If you're carrying bad weight, you're risking injury. If you're out of shape trying to suddenly play full-on football, you risk injury. That's why we have training camps and practice where you ramp it up, right? Where you slowly get your muscles acclimated to the demands of the explosiveness that you need to put on your body, on your muscles, on your ligaments. Like, he's just asking for it, man.
Yeah.
I hope he's okay. I hope he shakes it off. I hope he gets in shape, but I'm worried he's going to injure himself because he's not in shape and he's not prepared. And then he's not going to be that way the rest of the season because he'll still be working back from injury. And then when he finishes that, it'll be out of shape and not prepared.
Right.
So hopefully Amari Smims is getting healthy over there. That's all I got to say about that.
I think he'll be, I won't say playing, but I think he'll be available sooner rather than later. I'll just say this. This was probably some of the most time I've seen Joe Burrow have to actually throw. It was
Yeah.
actually crazy to see him be able to drop.
There were
back
some
and,
really
look
clean pockets, man.
really clean. It was very,
Yeah.
it was refreshing to see. And I feel like I think we've gotten so far away.
It
from
got
the
lost
offense.
in the game.
Yeah, I
It
really
did.
believe that, and I think that's why I just think a lot of people are so used to saying the offensive line was played poorly,
Yeah.
so it's kind of easy to just pinpoint that. If you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. We have content literally going out each and every single day. Tomorrow I'll be live for the Sit Down with Malik Wright's morning show, as I am Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. We'll be talking you through our favorite bets for Thursday Night Football, so on and so forth. My guy Parker Blake will be joining me on the show, and our fantasy experts here at TWSN be getting you all caught up with everything you need to do from your starts, your sits for this upcoming week 2 of the NFL season. Guys, this is how I know it's going to be a crazy State of the Jungle episode, right? We are only 2 topics in, and we're almost at an hour. We haven't even gotten to the other things that we need to speak about. So I guess I'll use that as a segue to shut up and get to those points. But we appreciate the activity in the chat. We appreciate how many of you are passionate about the Cincinnati Bengals and sort of how things have not panned out the way people I don't even know what I'm saying, but I'm gonna keep it going. Let's talk about Chiefs Bengals. Talk about Chiefs Bengals. Bengals taking on the Chiefs this weekend. Our guy Sean Brennan is in the chat. He's a Chiefs fan. He's become a resident fan of State of the Jungle and all of our content, and we appreciate you as well. But he made a comment earlier in the video, Danny, if you can pull it up. He says he thinks the Bengals are outclassed pretty much everywhere. And I don't agree with that personally. There's one part of the game for me where it's provides a little bit of uncertainty for that Chiefs offense, and you would think I'm going to say it's Patrick Mahomes. It's not actually. It's Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco's ability to run on this Bengals defense and be able to control the clock. I think that's the Chiefs' easier path to making life very difficult for the Bengals. I think Lou has had a very, very good game plan when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. That's not me knocking on Patrick Mahomes' ability or the Chiefs' ability.
Mm-hmm.
Quite honestly, the opposite. I think making Isaiah Pacheco, making Isaiah Pacheco the focal point of what you do will allow Patrick Mahomes' life to be a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Will allow guys like Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, and Travis Kelce to have a field day.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And I'm here to tell you right now, if I am a defensive coordinator for said team, like if I'm Lou, if I am even a linebackers coach or defensive lines coach like Marion Hobby, that keeps me up at night. That makes me a little bit scared, right? That's what's going to keep me, because the thing about Isaiah Pacheco is he's a smaller back. He's shifty, but he also has the ability to keep those legs churning him out, the thing that's scary about him, he's a willing pass blocker, but he's also very active in the passing game. So even when you think that you have an answer for him in the run, they just bounce that off with the passing game. See, for me, that's what bothers me. See, one thing people don't realize, people like our good friend Sean Brennan doesn't realize, Lou is very good at taking away your number one wide receiver. He's been really good at that for most of his tenure as defensive coordinator since he was able to get his guys in here. So that's why I think that guys like Xavier Worthy, who had a great, had a great showing, you're going to have to be mindful of the speed. I think he feels more comfortable with the guys that he has on the back end with Geno Stone and Von Bell to make life easier. Rashee Rice is going to get his. I expect Rashee Rice to be a volume guy for the Chiefs to a degree. I think Travis Kelce will be a guy that they go to as well. But I'm telling you right now, the way that the Chiefs are going to make life hell for the Bengals is not the receivers. It's going to be Isaiah Pacheco. Guys, what say you, Evan?
Yeah, just going back to the original point, I guess. I feel like it's completely fair to say, hey, the Chiefs have an advantage at 3-4 offensive line spots, quarterback. I know he kind of grouped O-line together as the entire position. So, if you want to do that, then I'll say, yes, you got the advantage at O-line. The tackle spots are still a little shaky. Obviously, yeah, Kingsley Suamatia is a rookie who had his ups and downs, but looked like he could hold his own against a talented Baltimore front. Jawan Taylor obviously has had his issues with sacks and penalties that, look, every penalty is basically almost as bad as a sack sometimes when you're talking about holding and false starts that keep putting you back and back and back and making things harder on you. Now, Pat Mahomes can help offset that for sure. The only thing I think I might push back on is defensive end. I think Trey Hendrickson is still significantly better than George Karlaftis, though I am a George Karlaftis fan. Both teams have next to nothing after that, just a bunch of solid guys, much like you might have a Mike Dana. You also have a Sam Hubbard when he's healthy, or a Joseph Osai, or a Miles Murphy when he's healthy, whatever tier you want to order those guys. So let's just call it a draw friendly in the edge department. I think the linebackers are definitely better for the Bengals. I think Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are handily a better combo than Drew Tranquil, who was on waivers recently, just 2-3 years ago, though he has played well since joining the Chiefs. And then Nick Bolton, who I think has had flashes, but still is a little bit liable in coverage. Right. Consistency is key versus Logan Wilson has led the NFL in interceptions over multiple years for linebackers. And Jermaine Pratt has had obviously his flashes, but much higher end flashes than Nick Bolton has had. So those are the only positions I would necessarily push back at. Safety, we can have an argument a little bit about, because as much as I love Justin Reed as someone who covered the Texans when they drafted him, I am very realistic about he's a great tackler, a great run defender, not so great in coverage. So yeah, I think that safety we could maybe argue about that, but that's overall just kind of a breakdown of how I see things for the Chiefs. Obviously Pat Mahomes, Rashee Rice, Chris Jones, all very, very, very talented players. I think, like you talked about, it's going to be, if you want to be the Bengals and you want to have a key to victory, it's shut down Rashee Rice, make Travis Kelce, who is aging, slower. Still a very smart player, still great at finding zones, great with chemistry, but the Bengals held him to just 16 yards on 3 catches last time they played. Rashee Rice was the one who hurt them with 127 receiving yards. So focus on him, make the rookie and Xavier Worthy try and beat you.
Pacheco,
the run game is going to be there, man. What I'm more worried about is if they want to run, I feel like, especially with the defense, the way they played, they were always in the right position to make the tackle, but they couldn't, right? And that was the big thing. The secondary is still talented for the Bengals. They just sucked at tackling, and they didn't get passed on much last week. Only 125 passing yards for Brissett, I think. And a lot of those were just zone drop play action.
It was a dream game for Brissett.
Yeah. So I think if you just say, hey, when they run the ball, they're taking it out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, I see that as a win, right? I think we can make enough tackles for loss on the Isaiah Pacheco runs to make it worth it, right? To where, hey, yeah, he's going to get you sometimes, but you need that one where you tackle him 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and now suddenly they're in a 3rd and long instead of a second or a 3rd and short, right? That's all you need. So I think try and take away Rashee Rice, force Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Kelce, and Xavier Worthy to beat you. But more importantly, you got to contain Patrick Mahomes, because he is one of the best at sack avoidance, to where he not only avoids the sack, but then creates a positive play out of it. If you can contain him, keep him in the pocket, make him throw the ball, and try and capitalize on any of the turnover plays he might produce, I think that is the Bengals' recipe to beating the Chiefs. Now, obviously, that's a lot easier said than done. But they do definitely have the horses to do it. It's just whether or not they show up to play or miss 13 tackles again. We'll see.
Yeah. The thing that really worries me is you kind of touched on it, and not that you necessarily disagreed. It's just whole Isaiah Pacheco idea and what it can do to the football game. Yes, I agree. When you hand the ball off and take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, it's a good thing. I do like that a lot. But at the end of the day, last week the Bengals couldn't tackle. They did okay in their run fits and everything. They just didn't wrap up. But now you're facing a much better offensive line, and arguably one of the best interior offensive line trios we've seen in quite some time. And you still have a really hard runner that likes to break a lot of tackles in Isaiah Pacheco. So I just think that combination, obviously, the line is going to be so much better than the Patriots. We're still probably going to have some tackling issues. I'm sure it's going to be all resolved just like that. If it is, awesome. But still, so you're going to have some slight tackling issues against a much better O-line, against a similar runner, Isaiah Pacheco or Mondre Stevenson, pretty similar players at the end of the day. The thing that really just scares me is that once that runs established, we can't stop it. It's just the speed of Xavier Worthy, just taking these shot plays, crossing the field, just going deep. Just because it says at one time you get sucked up a yard closer than you need to be, he's gone. We didn't really see him kind of get used in that regard a lot last week. He still found the end zone twice. So I agree that I'm not like Isaiah Pacheco as a whole isn't somebody I'm really worried about, but just the run game and how I think they should be able to have an immense amount of success running the ball, and just how much easier that's going to make life for those people that you mentioned that we need to try to contain. So it's just the way their offense should be able to work as a whole really is scary. Obviously, they're one of the best teams in the NFL, arguably the best, but it's going to be interesting because, like Malik said too, Lou does a good job against Patrick Mahomes, does a good job against the receivers. It's going to be interesting to see how he slows down the run game and doesn't overcompensate the run game, just just ignore the passing game.
Well, I live for this game. This is a game that always excites me. I believe in my core, head and shoulders, the Bengals are the better football team personally, and I've always maintained that. They were prepared when Jake Browning played them last year. They were prepared last time Joe Burrow played them. So with all the respect that I've shown the Chiefs, with all the respect that I've given them for everything that they've accomplished, obviously, and how much of a team that they, how much of a championship level and ready team that they are year in and year out, I think it's time to discuss the real, right? Some holes. The Ravens were able to take advantages from some issues for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs had some tackling issues of their own. Mike Gesicki and the Bengals tight end core should be able to produce, right? Because the Chiefs still can't cover tight ends, respectfully. I love the bracketing coverage that they were doing on Mark Andrews. When you turn on the film, that's what they were doing to him. That's why Isaiah likely had so many opportunities in that regard. Now it's, in turn, that speaks to how highly they view Mark Andrews. They basically said, hey, we view Mark Andrews as the Ravens one, not Zay Flowers, not Bateman. So you have to ask yourself, what are the Chiefs going to do? Who are the Chiefs going to view as the Bengals number one? And that guy is Jamar Chase. So this should be a game in which other guys should be allowed to eat. Which brings me to my point when it comes to the Chiefs. I think that I see a secondary that is still struggling personally. I think I see a secondary that you can take advantage of. I still see them making the conscientious decision to rush Chris Jones from the edge position. And, maybe that was a thing of maybe let's try to contain Lamar. I don't know exactly what it was. As much as we beat up on the Bengals defense, let's face it, Trey Hendrickson should have had 5 sacks last game.
Yeah.
He was just a hair off. I don't know what it was. It was just wasn't able to get there fully. I'll say this. If there's a team that I think the Bengals would be ready to face, it would be the Kansas City Chiefs. And that brings me to my point where I think that the Bengals are going to be able to take advantage of them in the passing game. I also think that all this negativity that the Bengals are dealing with in the national media is bulletin board material. And it's very similar to when we came out and when I forgot who the player was. Mike Hilton said Burrowhead or whatever it was, right? You have pundits everywhere saying the Bengals are soft. They're not physical. Joe Burrow's washed. Joe Burrow's this. You talk about a team that probably is getting ripped the most out of any other team in the media right now because of, and deservedly so. I have a hard time believing that this team won't come out prepared. And I've seen this story play out a lot of times. This is my prediction, by the way. This is not anything anyone's told me. This is just my prediction. I think the Bengals beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. And I think the Bengals beat them by being physical. I think the Bengals hit the ground running against the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't get me wrong. The Chiefs will be in the game the entire time. It'll be a close game. But I think that this will be the game that the Bengals need to get them on the right track. I think the Bengals beat the Chiefs on Sunday. That's my prediction. And usually I always say it's going to be a game. Usually I don't say much. But I've seen enough of disrespect from this team and people disrespecting this team in terms of saying that they're not ready. They're not who we expect them to be. They're not a playoff caliber. They're frauds. I mean, you name it. We've heard it this week. I think the Bengals come out ready to go. Bengals beat the Chiefs. Give me 28-24. Logan, what say you?
You're looking just for like a score prediction or how the game's just what exactly we want to do? Just score prediction?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, man.
No, I don't care about score prediction. What do you think happens? Who do you think wins?
Just man, it's tough to say because there's not much good relying on the Bengals after that weekend. I think this team is totally equipped to beat the Chiefs. But honestly, right now I'm struggling to see them win just because of how the Chiefs look last week versus how we look last week. But it's also just, again, it's kind of like you said earlier, like this coming after a loss like that. Now you're playing one of the teams you're always ready for. It's not that it's like a get right game in terms of we know it's a team we're going to beat, but we know it's a team we're going to prepare for. We know it's a team that, we're going to put our all in and just be really super locked in. That is super needed right now. I think it's going to be a little more low scoring than some of our battles in the past. I think both run games are going to try to be relied upon early, and just whoever's going to adapt and make that adjustment first, it's going to come out on top. And right now I'm leaning the Chiefs. Unfortunately, I don't want to say it, but it's just it's also kind of me just like saying the Chiefs. So when we win, or if we lose, I'm not going to be.
Joe Burrow is 3-1.
I'm not going to be upset
against the Kansas City Chiefs. Does not matter what the situation was the week prior. Guy always comes out ready to perform. The Chiefs still don't have an answer for the Bengals' weapons. I'm sorry. I do believe there is some narrative, and I saw what Jake Browning almost did to that team last week. I just fail to believe if the Bengals shit the bed again next week against the Chiefs, I'll be more inclined. But we've seen this story play out too many times for me to go against this team this week again. I wasn't as overly impressed with the Kansas City Chiefs from a defensive perspective that I think the Bengals are going to be able to take advantage of some stuff. We always knew the Patriots are going to have a tough run defense. We didn't expect. You can say that maybe they overlooked them. And I know somebody said, "Oh, Malik, your engagement farming." I swear to God, on the soul of my future children, I really believe in my heart the Bengals are going to beat the Chiefs on Sunday. I believe that in my heart. I have no reason to get engagement farm. I've sat up on the show before, and I've said it when I thought the Bengals were going to beat the Chiefs, and I've been right 3 out of 1 times. Right? Even when we did lose to the Chiefs with backup practice squad offensive lineman, and Evan and I were at the game, and Logan was at that game as well. The Bengals still almost beat the Chiefs. It came down to a field goal and a bad, a call, basically roughing the passer, or roughing unnecessary roughness going out of bounds. To me, I just think that the Chiefs have yet to show that they could really pull away against Joe Burrow-led Bengals. And for anyone saying that, hey, you're living in the past, or hey, you're doing this, there's if you want any reason to believe or not believe what I'm saying, why are Chiefs fans in a Bengals show right now? Why are you in a Bengals comment? Why are you in a Bengals show comment section right now? If you didn't feel any uncomfort, or if you felt the level of security, I would not be spending my Wednesday evening watching a Bengals show. That's the last thing I would be doing. You will never catch me watching a Chiefs show. I don't care enough to watch a Chiefs show. But you're spending to choose your Wednesday to watch State of the Jungle, a Bengals show presented by the Right Way Sports Network on a Wednesday night when you could be doing anything. You could be spending time with your significant other. You could be throwing back beer. You could be watching TV. You could be doing anything, but you're watching this show. You want to know why? Because the Bengals get under your skin, and that's okay. Competition breeds success. Some team is going to rise to the crop, right? The same team is going to rise to the top. The cream rises to the top. But that's why you're in the live right now. That's why you're watching, because you guys know what we know. And that is the Bengals make the Chiefs feel a little bit uncomfortable. And guess what? The Chiefs make the Bengals feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's nothing wrong with competition. There's nothing wrong with competition. I'm excited for the game, and you should be too. Evan?
Look, you come to this show for us to tell you the truth, right? Even when it's not so great. And I'm going to start by saying the Bengals can win this game. Malik's right. Like, that is possible. I think the formula to that is limiting Rashee Rice, making Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco try to beat you, as Travis is not the superstar athlete he once was, as they're trying to put him on a pitch count and involve Noah Graymore. And again, every time you give it to Pacheco's a very talented player. I don't want to disparage him, but he's not on the level of Mahomes. And every time you take it out of Mahomes' hands and put it in Pacheco's, I feel a lot better about the chances of victory. I think on the other side, the Bengals, if they want to be successful in offense, are going to have to challenge Bolton and the safeties in coverage, make these linebackers cover. Again, work on putting defenders in conflict. Don't just go out there in static looks. Change the picture on the defense, post-snap, pre-snap, mess with them a little bit, change the balance of the formation to which is the strength of the formation, so that they have to adjust their defense and get them in the middle of trying to communicate. Run the ball effectively, just like you did with the Patriots, but you're going to have more opportunities to do so, ideally, when you're not fumbling it away and not having multiple sacks and holding penalties, messing with your game script. You also need to use 12 personnel. It's working effectively for you. It's
Absolutely.
helping you have a good run game. It's going to help sell your play action shots just a little bit more. It doesn't have to be 15, 20 plays. It can be, another 5, 8 plays. Just keep sprinkling it in, keep working, find the balance. And lastly, what's the reason that the Chiefs defense has been one of the best defenses, despite not having all the best players, not having a lot of blue chip talent out of necessarily Chris Jones? George Karlaftis is a good player. Trent McDuffie, very good player. I don't mean to say that you don't have good players. I'm just saying the defense has outperformed the talent that you have. And the reason is Steve Spagnuolo is always dreaming up really interesting blitzes and finding ways to create for his players. That's why Trent McDuffie was the highest graded pass rushing corner and had 16 pressures and 3 sacks last season. When you blitz, Joe Burrow is usually very, very good.
Mhm.
So if the Bengals are going to win, Joe Burrow is going to need to be the quick processing version of himself, not the slow processing version that showed up versus the Patriots on Sunday. He needs to be able to process that quickly and win against the blitz. He did that a couple different times for when the Patriots played them. We're going to need to see it, but sharper this time, because you're not going to have that many chances against this defense. So when they do blitz, you need to be able to pull the trigger and make the big play happen, because I bet they're going to be begging you to throw short. So you're going to have to make them pay. And so Jamar Chase, Jermaine Burton, Yoshi Voss, whoever it is, someone needs to step up and be that threat when the Bengals are blitzed. All that being said, that's their path to victory, but I still see the Chiefs at home with the better quarterback at present, with the better play caller head coach, and overall just everything looking like it's functioning better at a higher level than the Bengals at present right now. I have to say I see the Chiefs winning this one out.
Hey, listen, I respect my co-hosts. I
We
respect
hope we're
their
wrong.
I respect their opinion. It's okay. Listen,
Hope I'm wrong.
I've been on this hill
But
before.
you asked me to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this isn't the first time that I've been the only person on the show picking the Bengals, and the Bengals have won. At the end of the day, I'm very confident that'll happen. Daniel, we want to get your opinion. I want to get your take.
Oofta. I don't think it happened. My biggest concern, I think the Bengals win this game. And it is going to come down to be honest, is the Bengals defensive line. And that's what concerns me. The Bengals defensive line is my golden ticket to this game. It is my golden ticket, to be honest, for the Bengals to make it far into the playoffs. It is my golden ticket for the Bengals entire season. And yes, you got your big time quarterback, and yes, the offense is a major issue, but it really comes down to this defensive line and just the pressure that you can put on the quarterback, which is why this game also comes down to Lou Anarumo, right?
Mhm.
Lou Anarumo's had Patrick Mahomes' number in the past, and to be honest, I think we're going to need to see a classic performance from Lou Anarumo.
Mhm.
We're going to need to see him to turn back the clock and show why you are and why you were widely regarded as a future head coach. And I think this is the game, and I'm talking to Lou right now, this is the game that you put yourself back on the map for everybody. And everybody, kind of is down on Lou. And I think this is the perfect spotlight. And that's what, it comes down to, right? Everybody sees the lack of talent, overall on this defensive line. Go throw some blitzes out there. And that's what this game really comes down to, because you got Trey Hendrickson, but besides that, right, it looked rough against the Patriots. Jacoby Brissett was scrambling. That's what's it's going to come down to. Patrick Mahomes is going to scramble, and he's won many games in the fourth quarter, late in games, getting out of, Dodge in the third down. So I think the Bengals play this close, and we'll get to our bets in a second, but +6, I don't think the Bengals should be a touchdown underdog, maybe by the way they're currently playing right now, but I think this is a one possession game either way. And this may come back to bite me in the ass, but I think the Bengals win by a field goal. So
remember last time we saw Joe Burrow take on the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe it was Patrick Mahomes' father that said, and I quote, "Smoking on that Burrow pack," right? That was him, right? That said that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, some good food for thought. Let's get to some of our favorite bets for that game. Daniel, I want to start with you. What are some of your favorite bets that you're looking at?
There's actually a lot I like. First off, I'm going to start it off just to play it safe. I think the Bengals were +6. I would buy them +7 just to keep it safe. I think they keep this one within a touchdown. And worst thing is, if you don't want that, I also like live betting, specifically games. You look at last week's game. If you would have taken their spread straight up, they were 8-point favorites. And obviously the Bengals did go and lose that game, but at one point they were +200. right before the Gesicki almost touchdown, that's when I was about to bet them. And I think you can live bet this game. I think the Chiefs could come out hot. And if you are thinking about betting the Bengals side, it might be smart to live bet the money line. But if there's one specific I like, I'm going to look at the Chiefs side real quick. I think Isaiah Pacheco, and hopefully I'm not stealing your thunder here, Malik.
You probably are, but it's okay.
Isaiah Pacheco's receptions, went back and looked what he's done against the Bengals. He has killed the Bengals. And typically it's the tight ends that kill the Bengals. But Pacheco had 7 receptions. He had 4 receptions, and he had 5 receptions. Yes, they do have Samaje Perine, but he didn't look great last game. He didn't look great last game. So I think Pacheco receptions, as well as if I am looking on the Bengals side, I'm going to wait till some of these other lines drop. I do tend to I think they're going to double Jamar Chase. I don't know if I'd be touching his receptions. And I got to wait to see the T. Higgins news because that's going to tell me a lot. But I would be looking at some of these other guys like Trent Irwin receiving yards because these lines are low. Like last game was at 15 to 20 yards. So I'd be waiting to look at those, and I'll let you guys get to yours first.
Man, no, why? I wanted you to keep going if there was another one that you had.
Yeah,
well, this is your chance. I want to move on to the questions after this.
I really think Mike Gesicki can have another big game. And obviously last week, a lot of people like to say, he did drop the pass, but I really hope that the coaching staff can look at that and look at the performance that he put and say, hey, this guy needs more snaps and he needs more touches. And I truly believe that Joe Burrow is a quarterback that is full of confidence in his guys, and there's a reason why Trent Irwin is still on this roster. I don't believe it's because the Bengals are, were huge fans of him. I think he had a great rapport with Joe Burrow, and I think I saw him have a great rapport with Mike Gesicki. And if I'm Joe Burrow, and the one great play that you almost had in this game was a Mike Gesicki high point touchdown in the back end of the end zone over a defender, I'd be looking at that and I'd say, hey, that's a guy I'm confident in outside of Jamar Chase that I can go to next game. And this is a big time spot and you need guys that you trust. And I think Mike Gesicki, his lines are going to be low once again. His touchdown is at plus 340. I would be looking at his over receiving yards. Last game it was 19.5. I think he easily clears this number for 35 plus.
There's a play that I like for this game. And in the last 3 games, Pat Mahomes is 0 for 3 for this bet. And it's his passing yards. He has not passed for 271 yards on the Bengals in his last 3 games. And I think that's going to continue. I think that's Lou Daney doing his magic. I think Patrick Mahomes is under on his yardage is something that I'm taking, actually. I think if there's a strong point where, especially, you mean to tell me he wasn't able to pass for 271 or 300 yards against the poorest Bengals defense last year when they struggled, when they had communications issue in their secondary? I love that. Daniel, and I kind of want your advice on this. Yeah. In his last 3 games against the Cincinnati Bengals, Pat Mahomes has only passed for 2 touchdowns once. That's a play that I'm also kind of flirting with a little bit right here. I don't know if I'm there fully touching it yet because this could be the game in which he gets it because I feel like he has a stronger – I feel like he's starting to build up that rapport with his receiving core. But Mahomes hasn't had the most elite passing days, I would say, against his Bengals defense. I think it's because of some of the confusion that Lou might throw his way, get him to hold the ball a little bit longer. But yeah, I'm definitely would take Pat Mahomes under on his passing yardage against the Bengals. That's a prop that I love. Chase Brown receptions is a play that I expect to be involved as well. I love that you stole my thunder with Mike Gesicki. I think Mike Gesicki continues to get his. What did he have? 3 receptions last week?
I think he had 2 before the.
He had 3. He had 3 last week. It was at 2.5, I believe, right? Or was it 4?
Let me check.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki.
I don't think 4.
I think he had 3 receptions last week, if I'm not mistaken. I would definitely try to tackle his it was 3 yards for 18, 3 catches.
So it would have been 4 with the.
It would have been 4 with the touchdown pass. I think he might get his 4 this week, but I'm pretty sure the odds aren't out right now. But when the odds do get out, I expect them to be at 2.5 again. People are going to be like, oh, this is not going to be. They're going to be like, oh, this is not going to be what we expect it to be. Joe Burrow's also had some pretty good days against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm flirting around his touchdown prop line is at 1.5. I got to see if I feel good on that. I think I do though.
What I would say to that, to be honest, and this goes if anybody believes the Bengals are going to win, and look at his yards, 225. This is the lowest you're going to get. 225.
225 yards.
Yes, 225 to 229. And I can see why it's set that low right now.
Yeah.
if you are of the belief that the Bengals are going to win this game and are going to be close in this game, hell, even if you believe that they're going to get smoked, I think that yardage is too low because I don't see a world where the Bengals go out and run 30 times against the Chiefs. I just don't see that. I don't think that they've shown that they're going to go ahead and do that without it being a Jake Browning-led offense. And I know that they have Zach Moss, but I struggle to see how Burrow doesn't go out and throw for more than 35 attempts. And that also kind of plays me to my next thing. I do like Joe Burrow, and this may sound kind of crazy, but I have been diving into these interception props. I like him to not throw an interception. And I think with the way that the Bengals are playing their offense, and once again, this could come back to bite me in the ass, but with the way that they're playing their offense right now, it is really conservative, and it is really, 1-2, and just super efficient, super quick passes. And if you are going to Jamar Chase, I trust him. So I don't think Joe Burrow goes out and throws an interception, and that's actually plus money currently for him to not throw an interception.
He's faced Steve Spagnuolo 4 times in his career, and he's hit that prop every single time in the yardage prop.
Joe Burrow's passing?
His passing yards prop, 446, 250, 286, 270. And he's thrown for 2 touchdown passes in every single game except for
the playoff game,
the last time he faced them. And Ryan Wilson, who's a Chiefs homer, he's in the comments section, says, Malik, 90% of your takes are based on most irrelevant past results. I'm not sure how the same offensive coordinator and same defensive coordinator are, is irrelevant, so to speak. These are teams that have sort of been joined at the hip and basically an unannounced rivalry for the last couple of years. I think that the stats we're laming off are very relevant. I think that there is some juice to the fact that Luan Rumo has had success and been able to honestly create chaos for Patrick Mahomes, and his yardage has been down compared to other teams. You're going off of one performance against the Baltimore Ravens, who are going through a transition at defensive coordinator from just last week, my man. So I understand why you're hyped over your team. I get why you are, but let's not act like the Bengals and the Chiefs have not had been neck and neck, and every game hasn't been decided with between a touchdown or less. Times.
You must have blacked out for my talking points because he said any anti-Bengals takes, fellas. I'm like, I chose the Chiefs to win.
So did I.
Yeah.
I complimented George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie and called him one of the best corners in the NFL and the best pass rushing corner in the NFL. I said Justin Reed's one of the best tacklers in the NFL. Chris Jones is obviously a monster. I said Pat Mahomes was the best quarterback. Yeah. I said that Andy Reid was one of the best head coaches and play callers. I don't know how much more praise you need to hear. And I picked the Chiefs. And when you ask me what do I see on the betting side, I'm like, hey, Chiefs minus 5.5. I don't know why it went from 6.5 to 5.5, but it is at minus 110. And if you're looking at rushing attempts, I like Pat Mahomes over 4.5, but it's kind of juiced at minus 135. So I'm going to go over 20.5 rushing yards. Bengals struggle to contain quarterbacks. Yes. I see a lot of scrambling coming. I see a lot of kind of just rollout options. And the thing I like about rushing attempts is if you expect a team to win, you can usually get that quarterback kneel at the end of the game to get you that extra rushing attempt or two. So that's always nice. But again, with the juice on that, I kind of lean toward the 20.5 yards. I think Pat Mahomes cleared that in 12 games last season. I'm feeling pretty good about that matchup with the Bengals.
Yeah. I think we all have a lot of respect for the Chiefs, but just because I'm not up here, glazing and saying y'all going to win doesn't mean that I don't respect. I just say what I believe in my heart. I believe the Bengals are the better team. I think Bengals are going to win. I don't think their week 1 performance is indicative of what they're going to show against the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. And I'm sorry if that does not fit your narrative or you want to get a clippable moment of me saying the Chiefs are better than the Bengals. I just do not believe the Bengals that played on Sunday against the Patriots are going to be the Bengals that we see on Sunday against the Chiefs. And my man, you've seen the matchup the last couple of years. You sort of know what to expect, or else you wouldn't be on a Bengals show live asking us questions about Bengals. So again, feel how you feel. I hope to see you, Chris Zito, and all you Chiefs fans back in the comment section on Monday, whether I'm right, wrong, or indifferent. If I'm wrong, you guys can say what you want to say. If I'm right, then I just hope you have the same energy, because I'll have the same energy regardless. Daniel, let's get some questions before we head out of here.
All right. We had
3 because it is pretty late. We're already at an hour and 30.
All good. So we had a question. I guess this kind of goes to what we were talking about with the game. Honky Kong said, if we can't stop.
What? Wait, what's the name?
His name's Honky Kong.
Oh my God.
If we can't stop Jacoby Brissett, how are we going to stop Lamar and Jaden Daniels? What's your guys' thoughts?
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
That's a good reaction to that.
Yeah, but like not Jalen Hurts or Pat Mahomes. How are we going to?
I think the rushing. I think the
rushing
rushing. The
It's just
rushing.
Again, Mahomes and Jalen Hurts
Well,
both
yeah.
run the ball too.
There's-
Like, okay, I because there's so much wrong with the Jaden Daniels offense. Like, it's the protection's not there.
That line's horrible.
He runs a lot.
16 attempts. And
That's the thing is he
crazy.
was bailing on pockets quick. And that's the thing, man, is if you're just ready for that downhill, if you have the spy, if you force him to
That's the thing.
feel uncomfortable, there's ways that you can do stuff, which like I need to look at the rates because it feels like the Bengals don't do some of the cheat code stuff on defense as much as other teams in terms of like simulated pressures. Loops, stunts, twists, slants, like just different stuff you're doing to mix up the fronts on the defensive line and keep the offense guessing, especially when the offenses across the NFL all look very disjointed in how they communicate, pass things off, and are finding success right now. So while offenses are still trying to work out the kinks, this is a great time to get free pressures, free plays. One thing that made the Pats so successful is they were doing sim pressures, I think, on almost 50% of their snaps. And when they did blitz, they weren't just blitzing one, they would blitz 6+, and suddenly they would change the numbers really quickly on you. So it was hard to know what was happening. And sure, they dropped out of it a lot of times, but then all of a sudden there's 6 people in your face when you're least expecting it. So there's a bunch of different like little ways that you can do like cheat codes for that kind of stuff that I'd hope to see them do more. But yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of there with you. I don't really have anything else to say about it, to be honest. You kind of took everything I was going to say. So
I'm stealing
Damn
McSteelerson. I know I suck. I'm sorry.
We had a question from Travis. He said, talking about the offensive line with how Trent Brown looked, would you guys be shocked and just if Amarius Mims is the starter once he's healthy?
No.
No, it wouldn't shock me, but I also I think it would have to take a colossal performance. It was week 1 as well, too.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say as well, I hope the Chiefs continue to line up Chris Jones outside and in that spot against Trent Brown.
Dude, he will literally sit down in the front, and when he sees what the offensive line's doing, there was literally a time. It was the game against the Ravens, I think, when Chris Jones got down, started to sit, and then he suddenly looks at the front and sees them starting to shift protection toward him. And so he taps the dude on the left and goes, slide over here. And so he moves over. Chris Jones gets to the side of him and then gets in his face and gets the pressure. And that's like what makes Chris Jones elite besides the crazy athletic ability is that he had the wherewithal to do that.
And they
then he also
allow
has
him
the
to.
freedom. Yeah.
That's
he
crazy.
basically just changed a dude and said, I don't care if you don't know this spot, play out of position because I'm getting over here and I'm getting them because they don't have time to make the adjustments. So like that's the level of like chess match stuff.
And that's the cool thing when Burrow and Chris Jones are going at it because usually it's like, the linebacker and the quarterback.
It's the Cam Newton, you've been watching film. That's the fun chess match.
When you hear Chris Jones talk about playing Burrow and how it's annoying, but he loves it at the same time. He said that Burrow is his favorite quarterback, right, to go after. It's because like you know that he's going to
he's going to challenge you.
He's going
It's
to challenge
satisfying to conquer that challenge, or like the losses make you want to win that much more, right?
And you figure if the Chiefs are able to go out there week 1 and week 2, beat the Ravens and beat the Bengals, they're like, who's going to stop us, right? Yeah. They're on cloud 9. They'll probably feel amazing. So like, I don't know. I still think the Bengals win that game, but I think it's going to be a nice chess match throughout. Let's get to one more, Daniel, before we head out of here.
Yeah, the one last question a lot of people were asking was about the Jamar Chase contract, and people were saying, is it possible for them to negotiate during the season? Do you guys think they will negotiate during the season? Overall thoughts on the Chase contract?
I was just say, if it was really as close as it appears to be, there's a slim chance. Typically, you don't see too much in season. Again, but if they really were truly as close as we're led to believe, there's definitely a shot. Again, I don't think it's a huge one just because it is kind of tougher to do in season, but I don't want to say it's a 0.
If I'm Jamar, number 1, the Bengals don't negotiate in season.
Yeah.
Number 2, if they are, if there's anybody they're going to negotiate for, it's going to be Jamar Chase. And 2, I would not negotiate with the Bengals until the bye week. Personally, I would if you're going to do any, because we're already in season at this point, right? Whatever he's going to get you should tack on what he's done throughout the season versus what he's going to potentially do for the future, obviously future years. I think it's in Jamar Chase's best interest to probably wait until the bye week, in my opinion.
I know that this feels like the sky's falling, the world's ending. Oh my God, they had the fallout. They couldn't get to an agreement, right? But they have 98% of the contract hammered out. Apparently, it was the holdup was when the guarantees are supposed to hit. And the reason for that is because of how you can space it out accounting wise for the Bengals. It's more advantageous to do something like, hey, roster bonuses, where, hey, yeah, you have this money guaranteed. Yes, it's coming to you, but can we pay it out to you on March 1st of every year, as opposed to all in one lump sum right now, to where we give you, instead of 60 million flat out, 15 million every March 1st for the next 4 years, right? That's the stuff they're hammering out now in the season. I don't see them negotiating. I don't see them wanting to set that precedent to deal with that, to incentivize people to sit out at that point or deal stuff and try and flex their leverage per se in the middle of a season. It's easier to just say, hey, no one's getting negotiated, so don't even bother trying to just like sit out and force our hand. The other aspect is, again, it's not a giant panic problem because Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb both ran into this already, where they didn't have 98% of the contract worked out already. They both waited until they had 1 year left on their rookie deal to sign their extension. Jamar Chase has 2. He's 1 year behind them. So it fits the timeline of a lot of other draft picks and precedent to wait until you have 1 year. It was a little early for him to ask, but that doesn't hurt, right? That could only help the Bengals. It's unfortunate that it didn't get done in time. Maybe it still can, but very, very slim chance I see this getting tabled until offseason, and then come, near free agent time, we get an announcement that the contract's all done.
100%. One thing that you guys, for spending your Wednesday evening with us, State of the Jungle crew, I saw a question here saying, when does Know Thy Enemy come out? It comes out Friday. Friday at 7 p.m. are the days and times that we're going to be planning for Know Thy Enemy to release on the YouTube channel. We appreciate y'all for spending your Wednesday evenings with us. Seriously, we love the banter back and forth, whether we agree, disagree. It's all love at the end of the day. We hope that you guys appreciate the content that we have coming out on the channel. Remember, TWSN to the freaking moon. We've got so much content coming out for the entire football season. When I say we have content coming out on this channel each and every single day, we have content coming out on the channel each and every single day. Join me tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time, as I'll be getting you guys all ready for week 2 of the NFL. Daniel will be with me live on the show. Marissa will be back on the 1s and 2s. And we've got a jam-packed show in store for you guys to help win you some money, get your fantasy lineup set up, and you can hear my opinion on some stuff going on around the league. Again,